Okay, so that feeling, right? Like endless scrolling on dating apps,
Yeah.
just profiles and pictures blurring together. You're
Yeah.
just like wading through possibilities.
Hmm.
But somehow it's like less connected than ever.
Right.
Almost like someone random is just sitting next to you on like a really long commute.
Yeah.
It's like they're close,
Mm.
but it's not fulfilling at all.
Yeah, that definitely resonates, I think, with a lot of people using those apps.
Right.
That like choice overload thing.
Right.
So many choices,
Yeah.
but somehow less satisfaction.
It's ironic.
Yeah, a fascinating paradox.
It is. And that's kind of what we're diving into today. On the
Yeah.
deep dive, we're looking at dating apps, and you shared a really interesting set of sources.
Yeah.
We have a UI/UX design breakdown from Icons 8.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pretty critical take on the whole thing from Medium, a piece by Zia Kwan.
Okay.
And then for all the techies out there like myself,
Yeah.
a Medium piece and YouTube series on how to build a Tinder clone with React Native.
Nice. So full spectrum here.
Yeah, so we've got the whole, like, the gamut here. We're looking at how they're supposed to be used,
Right.
the psychology behind them, and then, like, the nitty-gritty of how these things are actually built.
Yeah. From concept to code.
Yeah, exactly. And our mission today is to really, like, unpack all of this for you guys.
Cool.
So we're going to, like, get under the skin of the whole user experience.
Mm-hmm.
Why are these designs the way they are?
Right.
Maybe we'll uncover some surprising drawbacks.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll peek into that technical wizardry that makes all of this stuff happen.
Okay.
So by the end, you'll have like a much richer understanding of this whole thing that's kind of like taken over the world.
Yeah. Huge part of the social landscape.
It is. Okay, so let's start with that user-facing side of things.
Okay.
How are these apps actually designed? And the Icons 8 article lays out like these really clear do's and don'ts for UI/UX.
Yeah.
And the first do is all about just using things that are already familiar,
Right.
like common design patterns.
Yeah. This is key for adoption. They talk about how dating itself should feel natural
Right,
and the app should follow suit.
right.
So things that people are already used to.
Yeah, think about the left-right swipe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like second nature.
It's the universal language of dating apps now.
It is. The article even says Tinder sees like 1 billion left and right swipes every day.
Wow.
1 billion.
That's wild.
So, why change something that's so deeply ingrained,
If it ain't broke.
Yeah, it just makes the browsing process so easy.
Mm-hmm. Familiar and easy.
Yeah, for you using it. Right.
Exactly. Users don't want to learn a whole new set of interactions
Right,
for something they already get.
right.
Less friction, the better.
Totally. Okay, the next do is really focused on the user themselves,
Yeah.
like focusing on that user profile.
Mm-hmm.
And they say people need to express themselves in
Ooh.
more ways than just a couple photos and a bio.
Right. Like personality interests the whole pic. They talked about voice memos, multiple photos, even like favorite songs, little quotes.
Right.
Things that can really like tell you about a person.
Like a glimpse into who they really are.
Yeah, exactly.
They even gave an example of this project they worked on called Penguin Dating.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
They designed this like fun, kind of quirky questionnaire,
Okay.
multiple choice questions, and then their developers actually built an algorithm
Wow.
to match people based on their answers.
Interesting. So going a bit deeper than just the initial looks.
Yeah, for sure. It's more about like those shared values,
Yeah. Compatibility.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so another do that makes total sense, especially now with so many apps out there,
Right.
is recognizable branding.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stand out.
Yeah, you need something memorable in that sea of apps.
For sure. And they say branding's more than just the logo.
Yeah, it's the whole look and feel.
Right. It's like the color palette, they use the lettering, any illustrations, mascot.
Yeah, like a consistent visual language, so users can latch onto that.
They gave some cool examples like that frog mascot from the Once app.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, like Tinder's flame.
Right. Always there.
Yeah. And for their penguin dating app, they used a penguin.
Makes sense.
But it's supposed to represent loyalty.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, it's like that consistent visual presence, right?
Yeah, from the get-go.
Yeah, the icon, the onboarding screens.
Mm-hmm. Builds that brand recognition.
Yeah, for you, the user.
Right. A strong visual identity builds trust, too.
Okay, so this next one I actually like.
What's that?
I find it kind of comforting. They say you should show the user's progress bar.
Okay.
during those longer processes.
Right, like when you're first signing up.
Yeah, exactly. Like it can really calm your nerves.
Yeah, I get that. It's like you know what to expect.
Right.
Sets expectations.
Yeah, and Bumble, they even use a percentage progress bar
Interesting.
on user profiles to encourage people to like fill it all out.
Okay, so kind of gamifying that completion.
Right, exactly. And finally, in the do's, they say you got to make the whole thing exciting.
Because honestly, swiping can get old.
Right.
Yeah, it gets monotonous.
So this is where those gamification principles come in.
Right, levels,
Yeah.
points, rewards.
Yeah, or like having those activity feeds with all the updates, you know?
Right, keep you coming back for more.
But it does make you wonder, like, should dating be a game, you know?
That's a good point. Does it cheapen it somehow?
Yeah, that's an interesting question for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are all the do's.
Right, all the good stuff.
Now let's flip it and look at the don'ts.
Okay, the no-nos.
The first one's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Don't put interactive elements in places that are hard to reach.
Right, makes sense, especially with bigger phones.
Yeah, they even have this visual in the article
Oh, yeah?
from their Penguin dating app showing like good thumb placement versus bad placement.
Yeah, yeah. Got to think about ergonomics.
Yeah, you're usually holding it with one hand. You
Mhm.
don't want to be like doing hand gymnastics just to tap a button.
Exactly.
Okay, next one is all about color.
Oh, yeah. Color's important.
Yeah,
Does-
it's more than just making it look pretty.
It carries meaning emotional associations.
They say red is for love, yellow for joy, black for mourning.
Right.
Dating app logos, they use lots of pinks, yellows, blues, purples.
Trying to tap into those positive emotions.
Yeah, and they also talk about accessibility.
Right, making it usable for everyone.
Like using high contrast text, white text with strokes.
Makes the name stand out more.
Yeah, so it's readable for everyone.
Inclusive design.
Okay, the next don't, I think everyone who's used these apps has felt this.
What's that?
Don't leave the user hanging after a match.
Right.
It's like you get that mutual,
And then crickets.
yeah, and then what?
And you
They
love
talk
it.
about how important post-match engagement is.
Right.
Like giving you features to break the ice, you know?
Yeah, some prompts maybe.
Yeah, conversation starters.
Hope you go beyond that initial ping.
Right, because a match is just the start, right?
Yeah, it's like that spark.
Exactly. You need that follow through.
So the app should help with that.
I think so. Okay, another don't is about trends.
Okay.
They say don't just blindly follow design trends.
Yeah, trends come and go.
Right. And then your app looks dated really quick. I
Exactly.
guess they focus on like the more timeless stuff.
Right. Minimalism, 3D content, motion graphics.
Yeah.
Those things seem to have staying power.
So it's more about being aware of the trends,
Mm.
but grounding your design in something that's going to last.
Right, something that's core to your brand.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last, don't, super important.
Okay.
Don't jeopardize user safety.
Right, paramount.
Yeah, they only touch on it briefly, but it's like the most important thing.
For
Yeah.
sure, you need those safety features
Right. Easy reporting, profile verification, community guidelines.
to protect the user.
Okay, so that was a good look at the design choices.
Mm-hmm. The intentional side of things.
Yeah, let's get a little critical.
Okay.
We have this really interesting medium piece by Zai Kwan,
Yeah.
Are Dating Apps Designed for Dating?
Provocative title.
Yeah, and they're pretty skeptical.
Yeah, they're asking the tough questions.
They say one of the biggest issues is like how inefficient it is
Okay.
to actually find real dates through these apps.
Right.
They have these crazy stats, like 13 hours on an app for one real life date.
Wow.
And that's like looking at hundreds of profiles,
Yeah.
dozens of matches, tons of conversations.
It's a lot of time and energy.
It is. You have to wonder, like, is it even worth it?
Yeah. What's the return on investment?
Right. And it really highlights that, like, numbers game feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go in optimistic,
Right. Full of hope.
but then it's like a constant filtering process.
Yeah, it gets tiring.
It does. It's draining.
Mentally draining.
And then there's the whole issue of superficiality, you know,
Right.
and unrealistic expectations.
It's like everyone's presenting the best version of themselves.
Oh, exactly.
Airbrushed highlight reel.
It is. It's like everyone's putting their best foot forward.
Right. And then reality doesn't always match up.
Yeah. And then one of their most interesting critiques was how these apps can ignore basic human interaction.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's like in the virtual world, some of those social norms go out the window.
I see. Yeah, like you wouldn't act that way in person.
Right. They make this analogy of trying to have a meaningful conversation with 285 matches at the same time.
Yeah. That's not humanly possible.
It's not, and it contributes to things like ghosting.
Right, just disappearing.
And they say it's because we forget that the person on the other side is a real human with feelings.
It's easy to dehumanize them in that digital space.
Yeah, it's different from face-to-face where you have that accountability.
Right, there are consequences.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The author says maybe we're thinking about this whole thing wrong.
Okay.
They say maybe dating apps aren't really for dating.
What?
Yeah, they think they're more like entertainment.
Okay.
Like scrolling through Instagram.
Interesting.
It's like a fantasy fulfillment thing.
So maybe we shouldn't go in expecting a relationship.
Yeah, maybe it's about taking it less seriously.
Just enjoy the ride.
Exactly. It's a different perspective for sure. Okay, let's switch gears completely.
Okay.
Let's talk tech.
Let's do it.
We have this article and YouTube series that walk through making a Tinder clone.
Yeah, so...
First things first, the core functional requirements.
Okay, the must-haves.
So users need to be able to make profiles with preferences.
Right. Age range, interests, distance.
Yeah, and then of course you need that scrollable view of potential matches.
Right, the stack of profiles.
Yeah, and it has to use that swiping mechanic.
Left for no, right for yes.
Yeah, iconic. And then the system needs to tell you when there's a match.
Right, mutual interest.
They did say that things like image uploads and chatting were considered secondary for this initial design discussion.
So they're focusing on the core.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so those are the essential features.
Right, what it does.
Now, what about the non-functional stuff?
Okay, the performance side of things.
Yeah, so first you need strong consistency for the swiping.
Right, if you swipe right on someone and they've already swiped right on you.
You want that match notification immediately.
Yeah, no delays.
Right, and the whole thing needs to be scalable.
Of course, millions of users. Tons of swipes every day.
The article said something like 100 swipes per user per day on average.
That's a lot of data.
It's crazy. And then, of course, everything needs to load super fast.
Yeah, under 300 milliseconds.
So that you're not waiting around.
Keep the experience smooth.
Yeah. And then they also talk about how important it is to not show you the same profiles over and over.
Yeah, you got to keep it fresh.
Right. Nobody wants to see the same person twice.
Exactly.
And they mention things like fake profile protection and system monitoring.
Right. Keep things running smoothly.
Yeah, but that was kind of outside the scope of this particular design discussion.
Okay, makes sense.
So we have the features, the performance goals. What are the core data elements?
Okay, the building blocks.
Yeah, the entities the article calls.
All right, so first you have the user. That's the person using the app and their profile information.
Right, then you have the swipe.
Yeah, which records their decision on another user.
Left or right.
Exactly.
Right.
And it knows who swiped and who was swiped on.
Got it. And then lastly, the match.
Yeah, the connection.
Okay, simple enough.
Yeah, the core concepts.
So how does the app on our phones talk to the servers?
Ah, the API.
Yeah, application programming interface.
It's the communication bridge.
So what are the key endpoints?
Okay, so one is POST profile.
Right.
That's when you set your preferences.
Okay, age, range, distance, all that.
Exactly. Then there's G at T feed.
That's how you get that stack of profiles to swipe through.
Right, and it usually uses your current location.
Okay, and then POST swipe users.
Yeah, that's the one that records your swipe.
Left or right.
Exactly.
So, okay, so every time you open the app and start swiping.
Your phone's making requests.
Yeah, sending data back and forth.
Behind the scenes.
Okay, let's talk about the big picture design. The high-level architecture.
Okay, the system as a whole.
So we have the client, which is the app on your phone.
Right.
And that talks to an API gateway.
Which acts like a traffic controller.
Okay.
It directs requests to the right place.
And then there's a profile service to manage all the user data and a database to store it all.
Securely.
Right? So when you make your profile, all that stuff goes through the gateway to the profile service and into the database.
Makes sense.
So what about when you're actually looking at those potential matches?
Ah, the feed generation.
Yeah.
So the simplest way would be to just query the database directly.
Okay.
Find everyone who meets your criteria.
Right.
But that gets really slow with millions of users.
Yeah. It wouldn't be very snappy.
No, not at all.
So they need something more sophisticated.
Exactly. Optimizations are key.
Okay. And then there's the swiping and matching the heart of the app.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
How does that work?
So usually there's a separate swipe service
Okay.
and a swipe database.
Why separate?
Because swiping happens way more than profile changes.
So it needs its own resources.
Exactly. You want it to be fast and reliable.
Okay. So every swipe goes into this database.
Right. Millions and millions of swipes.
And the swipe service is constantly checking for matches.
Right. If the person you swiped right on also swiped right on you.
You get that notification.
Immediately.
And they said that just pulling the database wouldn't work.
No, too much lag.
Right, you need that instant feedback.
Exactly.
They talked about using database transactions in Cassandra
Right.
to make sure the swipe and the match check happen at the same time.
Atomically.
But they also said that can be tough to scale with Cassandra.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with multiple partitions.
So what are some of the better ways to handle this matching logic?
Well, one approach is to use Cassandra's single partition transactions.
Okay.
The key is to design the database so all the swipes between two users are in the same partition.
So it's all in one place.
Exactly.
Smart.
And they use a compound primary key, which includes a special user pair identifier.
So it's consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the swipe and the match check happen together in that one partition.
Okay, what's another solution they talk about?
Another one uses both Redis and Cassandra.
Okay.
Redis is really fast for those real-time checks.
Okay.
And Cassandra is good for storing all that data long-term.
So it's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, speed and durability.
Okay, so let's go back to that feed generation problem.
Right, got to make sure it loads fast.
Yeah, you can't query the database every time.
No too slow.
So they talked about pre-computing and caching the feeds.
Right, run some calculations in the background.
Yeah,
Figure out potential matches for each user.
based on their preferences.
Exactly, and store that in a fast cache.
Okay, so when you open the app,
Boom, instant matches.
but what happens when your preferences change or you move?
Good question.
Like those pre-computed feeds could be outdated.
Right, they could get stale.
So they use a combination of pre-computation and real-time querying with a database like Elasticsearch. So you get the fast initial feed,
Yeah.
and then it seamlessly switches to real-time as you swipe.
Makes it fresh.
Yeah. They also mentioned that client-side caching can help too.
Oh, right. So your phone remembers who you've swiped on.
Yeah, so you don't see the same people over and over.
Makes sense, especially when the prefetch stack is running low.
Right. Okay, so we've covered a lot on the back end.
Mm-hmm. The brains of the operation?
Now let's look at the front end, the part you actually see.
Okay, the user interface.
The YouTube video shows how to build a Tinder clone with React Native.
Yeah.
They use the React Native CLI,
Okay.
not Expo.
Got it.
And they use a few key libraries.
Mm-hmm.
React Native gesture handler for the swiping vector icons for icons later on.
Okay.
And reanimated 2 for the animations.
Cool. The fun stuff.
Yeah, so they start by making that Tinder card reusable,
Good practice.
right? Makes the code cleaner.
Yeah, and easier to maintain.
And each card gets its data through props.
Right. Dynamic data for each profile.
And then they use reanimated 2 to make those swipe animations.
Okay.
It's pretty complex. They use shared values.
Which are like special variables
Yeah.
that can be updated really fast.
And they use them to track how far you're swiping.
Okay.
And then animated styles change how the card looks.
So it moves smoothly.
Yeah, and it's not just sliding.
Right.
They also rotate the card.
Yeah, that little tilt.
Yeah, they use interpolation to map the swipe distance to the rotation.
Clever way to make it feel more interactive.
And what about the card underneath the one you're swiping?
Oh, yeah, you see it peeking out.
How do they do that?
They render the next card below the current one
Okay.
and animate its scale and opacity
Okay.
based on how far you swipe the top card.
So it looks like it's coming up next?
Exactly.
And they use with spring to make the card spring back if you don't swipe all the way.
Right. Nice little detail.
Yeah, it makes it feel more natural.
And what about those like and nope overlays?
Yeah, those are cool.
They fade in based on your swipe, so you get instant feedback.
And then they refactor the whole card stack into this abstract component.
Right. Make it more reusable.
Yeah, compared to Flatlist.
Oh, yeah, the built-in component.
So this new animated stack component can handle any data and any rendering function for the cards.
So you can use it for other things too.
Exactly. Really clever.
Yeah, good design.
And they even show how to pass events back from the stack to the main screen.
Right, so you can actually handle the likes and nopes.
Yeah, and update the back end.
Using run on JS.
Yeah, to execute functions on the main thread.
It's like a bridge between threads.
It's amazing how much goes into making it all look so seamless.
Right behind the scenes, it's a complex dance.
So we've seen how dating app design balances user experience and technical challenges.
Yeah.
They're designed to connect people,
Right.
but they can also lead to frustration and superficiality.
And the tech behind it is incredibly complex.
Yeah, all those real-time interactions and data management.
It's mind-boggling.
So you should now have a much better understanding of how these apps work.
Yeah, from the pretty face to the complicated guts.
Exactly. And it really highlights the tension between technology and human connection.
Right.
These apps promise to bring us together.
But they also change how we interact.
And those design choices and limitations have a real impact.
Yeah, it makes you think.
What stood out to you as the most surprising thing?
Honestly, the sheer scale of data,
Yeah.
billions of swipes a day.
And it all has to happen instantly.
Crazy.
For me, it was that critical take.
Yeah.
Are these apps actually for dating?
Right.
Makes you question your own expectations.
For sure.
So I encourage you to think about the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
the ethical implications of all of this.
Right.
Are there better ways to connect?
Interesting question.
And if you're feeling adventurous, maybe explore the tech side.
Yeah, dive into the code.
See how these things are built.
It's a whole world down there.
There's a lot more to it than just swiping left and right.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
My pleasure.